Good morning YouTube, it's TSP back again with another video. So it's the weekend. I had the opportunity to go shooting again. So I hadn't been shooting in a few weeks, but I thought that I kind of liked just chatting with you all, having a real conversation with you about things that are going on in the world, going on in my life, and how they kind of interconnect with psychology. And so I thought that I'd continue this this video, I guess, theme on just kind of while I'm cleaning my weapon, having a discussion with you about these things. So I only shot my Glock 17 this weekend, so this video will be quite a bit shorter than the previous one. It just didn't feel like shooting any other of my weapons. But one of the things that came up actually from the last video that I made was the idea of dealing with haters. You know, and so there were actually some comments. Actually, there was one comment from the last video that was kind of concerning to me, and I thought it might be good for me to talk about why I created this channel in the first place, and then maybe talk a little bit about kind of dealing with haters, dealing with trolls, dealing with stuff like that. So I created this channel because, you know, in my field, we tend to focus on tertiary interventions, and essentially what that means is that for the vast majority of people that we're treating, it's oftentimes in, say, an individual setting after they have developed some type of significant problem. And so that's all well and good that we have really good interventions for people who have developed a problem, developed depression, developed anxiety, developed PTSD, and helping them help them over or through these issues. Like, we're really good at that. One of the things that's much more difficult is primary interventions. So interventions that are going to help people to, in some way, maybe inoculate them or to help them deal with potential issues before they develop. So people who are dealing with maybe stressors who could eventually develop a depressive disorder or anxiety disorder, helping them to deal with stuff before it even gets that bad. So ultimately preventative stuff, and maybe even secondary interventions where, you know, people are experiencing things, but we can help also, again, prevent these things from becoming full-blown disorders. So when I think about that, I think about, you know, this thing called YouTube. It's a great resource for a lot of people. A lot of people use it for entertainment purposes. A lot of people use it for information. And so this is a great place to try to disseminate a lot of information to a lot of people. I know that I was thinking about this, and there's no way in the world I could communicate to and or impact as many people as I really would like to, primarily engaging in tertiary interventions. So, and you know, primary interventions are tough too. How do you design them to reach as many people as possible? And so that's why I decided to create this channel, is that maybe I could, you know, create some good scientifically based videos talking about some of the things that can be helpful to people who are dealing with various issues, and maybe that could be a way to get it to a lot of people. So that's why I ultimately did this, and so that's my hope. And so when I say that I hope we can make your tomorrow better than today, I really do mean that. That's ultimately why I've created this channel. So let's move to the next part of this topic, and that is why I was saying that this is at least in part going to be talking about dealing with haters. So the last video that I made, in the thumbnail, I have a picture of myself holding, I believe that was my Glock 19 that time. So literally the first comment that popped up on the screen was somebody saying, "Oh look, another violent N-word." And so this is actually one of the reasons why I had delayed and put off creating a channel or anything of this sort on YouTube for quite some time, because I'm very, very acutely aware that there are a lot of what people call trolls nowadays. There are a lot of haters out there as well, and oftentimes those people, the trolls and the haters, maybe they're the same person. So there's a lot of that out there nowadays, and part of me just didn't want to have to deal with that. You know, it can be taxing. It can be emotional and emotionally stressful and taxing dealing with those people. And that's, and everybody has haters. Everybody has people who troll on them. And so, at that point, I just didn't want to have to deal with that more than you already have to deal with it. But what I realized is that, my goal ultimately for this channel, it was more important than kind of just wanting to stay away and not have to deal with the trolls, the haters of the internet. So I decided to go ahead and make a channel and just see how many people that I could reach with my message and the information that I'm trying to provide to people. So that's ultimately kind of what was brought up for me. So dealing with people who are like that, who are going to just intentionally make your life irritating or sometimes even a living hell. It's possible. That can be difficult for a lot of people. There are people who are going to make comments about you or to you, maybe with little basis, little reason to do so. Really. But how do you deal with that? How do you find a way to think about and address those without it significantly and negatively impacting you in your life? So one of the things I've learned over many years, some of it's just me. Some of it are things that I've done in the way that I think about people, the way I think about the world, just that's helped me, not even related to the training that I've had in psychology. Some of it's kind of, I've intertwined some psychological aspects, principles that I've come to understand. But a lot of it's things that I end up just developing for myself to deal with things like that. When I was growing up, I kind of had this sense that people were always watching. That's actually is something that I was told growing up, that people are always watching, and me being a black male, people were watching even more closely because to some extent, depending on how I performed, if I messed up, then people would use that as an analog or generalize that to other people who look like me. And so I was always aware of that as a possibility in my life. But as I got to graduate school, I realized that I did have a good bit of anxiety, I guess that's the proper word to use, when it came to the way people were looking at me, things that people were thinking about me. I always did my best to try to carry myself in a way that was ooh, that's not good. Anyway, that's respectable. Oh, I gotta change these pants. But still, I did have some anxiety, and I would often find myself thinking about, if I'm walking through the lunchroom at the university, and I'm thinking about kind of what are these people thinking about me as I walk through. And one of the things that has been the most helpful for me and learning how to deal with that, and to get around and get over maybe potentially negative things that I sometimes assumed that people were thinking, even without any type of evidence. And I wonder if other people have that experience. Well, I know some of you do, but if you do, comment below and tell me about it. But oftentimes I would not have any evidence for these thoughts regarding anything that they might be thinking about me. But I had to find a way to kind of deal with that so that it didn't, distress me and disrupt my day. So one of the things that I realized after thinking about it for quite a bit of time is that what people think about you is more about them and their hang-ups than it is about you. So what people think about you is more about them and their own hang-ups than it is about you. And what I mean by that, it's that people view you through their own lens. So we all develop and we all have a myriad of experiences during our life, and it's those experiences that we have that we use to shape our understanding of the world. That's a very basic way to look at the way that people develop. Right? We use our past experiences to shape our worldviews. But that same way that we're developing and looking at the world and those experiences, that's going to shape the things that we tend to focus on, or the things that we attend to. And so when we have a lot of experience with certain things, so maybe a person grew up being called lazy by somebody in their family, right? So they have this hang up about laziness. They see somebody doing something that is not consistent. They see somebody doing something that's not consistent with what they should think the person ought to be doing. And maybe their first thought is that, hey, that person's just lazy. A waste of space, waste of time, Well, those thoughts about the person and whether they are or not lazy, that's more so about them and their own issues rather than about the person who they're perceiving. And that has been one of the most helpful and grounding things that I've ever realized, is that what people think about you is about them. It's not about you. Whether people are thinking something negative about you or not, it is more about them than it is about you. And maybe you even had these types of thoughts before too. Maybe something like that example of laziness. Maybe it's in a relationship, and maybe you're concerned about somebody cheating. There's definitely instances where it makes sense to be concerned about somebody cheating. But oftentimes, if you think about it, it's the people who are cheaters, who cheated in the past, are the ones who tend to be the most concerned about somebody cheating on them, because they know that when they engage in certain behaviors, they may have been more likely, or they were in the process of cheating on somebody. So if you think about it, and you think about kind of if you've interacted with somebody who's been a cheater, then you often see that they're the ones who tend to be the most paranoid about somebody cheating on them, because they've cheated on other people. So that's one, at least the way I think about things, that is one of the best things that's helped me to learn how to deal with people, haters, just people who are thinking about you, or people who are making comments about you in a negative way in general. So haters, trolls, the trolls are different. Trolls are different because trolls oftentimes, they don't even know you. They don't know anything about you, and they simply have the goal of trying to cause some type of emotion, some type of, oftentimes a negative emotion is like the goal. But trolls are trying to get a rise out of people. And so, trolls probably, boring, they're sad little, sometimes ignorant little people, but they're going to always be there. Yeah, they're always going to be there. And so, one of the best ways to kind of address trolls, or to deal with trolls, is to not address them, not to focus on them. Because we all know that the purpose of trolls is to get a rise out of you and to try to get some type of response from you. And if you give them that response, then you are giving them exactly what they want. And so, one of the things I would recommend for dealing with trolls is just ignoring them. And so, saying ignore them, just ignore them, I guess that's probably something that's probably easier said than done for a lot of people. But in terms of finding ways to ignore them and not allow the things that they're saying or doing to distress you, disrupt your daily life, think about what you're trying to accomplish. What is your goal in this interaction? Okay? Because a lot of times, if we're dealing with somebody who maybe we're labeling as a troll, and maybe you haven't even identified them as such, so you probably will need to identify the fact that they're a troll before you even try to take these suggestions. But you have to identify that these people are trolls, right? And part of what we mean by a troll is somebody who is engaging with you without any purpose, without any goal other than causing some type of emotional distress or some type of emotional arousal in you. There's really no productive goal that they have. So for the trolls, what we want to do is identify them as such, and once we've identified and clarified that this person is a troll, then we have to realize, okay, what is our goal in our interaction with these trolls? Because if your goal is to educate a troll, then you're likely to put yourself in a position where you're going to be much more frustrated and much more upset than you could have been, than you would have been if you had just disengaged completely with the troll. Because you have to remember that the troll, their goal is not to develop, is not to have a good conversation. The goal of the troll goals are to disrupt and to cause upheaval, emotional arousal, to cause distress. So if your goal is if you are trying to engage with them, then you also have to realize that you're putting yourself in a position for probably additional distress. So you can definitely make that decision to say, hey, I'm going to engage with this troll and I'm going to try to set things straight. But you also have to realize that when it comes to having a good, genuine conversation with somebody, and if you're trying to help somebody grow or develop, there has to be some desire on some level for them to want to grow or develop. You're not going to help somebody grow or develop who has absolutely no desire to do so. And that fits the definition of the troll. So you can engage with them, and if you engage with them, be aware that there's a good chance that it's probably not going to be a fruitful conversation, but allow yourself to accept the fact that this might be a useless or worthless conversation that you're about to engage in. Because if you enter it with the belief that you're going to be able to, change the mind of the troll, or that you'll be able to have a good, fulfilling, insightful, and deep conversation with the troll, then you're setting yourself up for a lot of frustration and irritability. So, when it comes to trolls, one of the best ways is to not engage them. And if you have engaged, once you realize that they're a troll, disengage, and go on about your life. And so, from the last video that I was talking about that I made, that troll that just kind of made that offhand comment, that was just, it was interesting because there was absolutely nothing. If we want to actually look at what was going on in that video, there was nothing violent or anything of a violent nature going on related to that video. Right? I literally was just cleaning my weapon and showing it. I wasn't pointing at the camera. I wasn't doing anything of that nature. And so, for all intents and purposes, it was one of the easiest examples of a just extremely obvious troll. And on one level, I did become upset initially because, I don't like that word. Don't like that word at all. But on another level, after I realized that it was a person that was trolling, and that it was probably some 10-year-old kid, maybe 12, who was bored and just was trying to get a rise out of somebody, I realized that, hey, it's not worth my time to even think about. And that this was even less important than, the times when I'd be walking through the lunchroom at the university and thinking about what people might be thinking, right? This is even less important in those times, because this person who literally has no knowledge of me whatsoever, other than the message that I try to convey over this medium of YouTube. My baby's playing. So, put things in perspective. Trolls are trolls, and they have no desire to really engage in a good, healthy conversation. And haters are haters because, at least in part, there's something that you have or doing that probably upsets them. There's oftentimes jealousy, things of that nature going on. So my Glock 17 is clean, and thank you all for listening. So if you don't already follow me on Instagram or Twitter, I like to tweet and twits and the twats. I don't think that's a word that they use, but follow me on Instagram, TSP Super Psych, and I thank you for your time, and ultimately, I really do hope that we can make your tomorrow better than today. Thank you, and have a great day.